Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be working on this really interesting Intercity 125 locomotive from Hornby. This is a locomotive which I picked up a couple months ago in an eBay lot, along with a whole bunch of other British locomotives, and at the time when we tested this thing, things were certainly not looking too good for it. There was actually something burning inside the motor, and it was so bad that you could actually see light, and there was a fair bit of smoke coming off of it. So clearly something is very wrong with this locomotive. I've also since then noticed that one of the tires is missing, and at the time we tested this too, the whole drive was actually slid up and this wasn't hanging on properly. So this thing clearly has had a bit of a rough go at it, and it doesn't run at all, but today we'll see what we can do, and hopefully, if we're lucky, we'll be able to get this really interesting locomotive riding the rails once again. So let's take it over the track. I'll kind of show you all what it's doing right now, and then we'll go from there. Hopefully the motor is still salvageable. So just to give you a brief idea of what's going on here, I'll set it up on the track and we'll give it some power. I'm not going to do this for very long because I don't want to make that motor any worse than it already is. But if we give it some power, it actually tried to move there. You can see we got a working headlight. There's a little bit of current draw, but yeah, you can hear the motor humming, but it's not moving. And you can see like it will move like a centimeter, but that's it. So clearly something's really wrong with the motor, and we need to fix it. So let's take it back over to the workbench and we'll see what we can do here. So obviously this locomotive's not in such great shape, but there is one thing that gives me some hope, and that's the fact that the current draw is low. So hopefully the coils on the motor are not shorted. Anyways, I've noticed that there are about 5 different points that this locomotive is actually held to the chassis. So we're going to try to take this thing apart. I think if we lift this back part off and then pull from the sides, it will just kind of pop out, as it has. And here we are inside. You can see you got your typical Ringfield motor. It looks identical to the Lima ones. And it looks like we actually have the tire for this thing. What luck. I looked in the box for this. I thought it was long gone. So yeah, we've already got one part. That's some good news. But the question right now is the motor okay? So we can already see right here, the drive is not seized. It is turning, which is not entirely surprising. It did move a little bit on the track. But again, last time we tested this thing, there was a lot of stuff burning inside of it. So what we need to figure out is how to actually open this thing up. I think what I need to do here is just take all that off. So I'm not entirely sure how this thing is supposed to come apart, but it kind of looks like this just separates. So I guess I'm just going to try prying up on this, and hopefully this will allow us to get in here and have a look at the motor. So here's kind of what's confusing me right now, getting this motor open, and that's when they built this drive, they probably pressure fit these wheels onto the axles here. So in order to lift this part of the motor off, you have to unclip these tabs on either sides, pull up these wires, and then this should slide out. But the motor shaft prevents you from actually sliding it up, and you can't pry it outwards because the wheels block you. So we're sort of at a bit of an impasse. So I think what I'm going to try to do is just gently pry up here, and I'm just going to try to remove these wheels. This is not something I really like doing because obviously you really have to add some sort of an adhesive afterwards, but I think it's the only way we're going to be able to get this drive apart. So we'll take both those out and then see if that makes any difference in removing this. And there we go. Here are both of our springs. They look okay. This one's a little bit frayed, but that's all right. The real question is, what is going on with the motor? So what we're going to do here is we're just going to try to assess the motor to see how the coils look. So here's the first coil, and it looks decent. There is some burnt stuff on it, but I think that just came off the commutator. We got the second coil right here, and this one's not looking so great. You can actually see there are some loose wires here, which is not terrific. That could mean that it's come unsoldered in one spot or another, so that's not so great. The last coil looks pretty good, so yeah, I'm really unsure. It could just be the commutator that was failing on this, but there's also a chance that one of these coils has a short on it or is disconnected. So I think what I'm going to try to do here is just clean out the gaps on the commutator, and then we'll just try applying some power directly to the motor, and we'll see what it does, and then we'll know if one of these coils is bad. So now that we've got those gaps all cleaned out, we're going to actually test the motor out by applying power directly to the commutator. And we're seeing with these first plates, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. So that's probably a sign that that unwound coil is bad, because I bet if we apply power to these ones, yep, it'll try to turn. So we've got a bad coil. That's quite unfortunate. So I guess at this point what I'm going to try to do is we're going to try to actually get this motor out, and then we'll see if we can either resolder that wire or maybe rewind it. I don't know. Either of those is kind of something that I'm not super experienced with, but we'll have a go with it. Maybe we'll be lucky. So I've had a good look over this armature, and unfortunately it does not seem to be in very good shape. Basically, each of these coils has two wires, an inner wire and an outer wire. Now the inner wire connects to a tab right here, which actually goes through the plate on the commutator. It comes in here, wraps around making the coil, and then the outer wire connects to the tab on the next plate on the commutator, and each coil is connected to one another doing this. Now, unfortunately, due to this design, which is a little bit different than a North American one where they're all connected on the outside, what's happened here is that this is actually twisted a little bit. It's turned like that, snapping the wires on the inside, and that's why not only one, but two of these coils had actually come unwound. So trying to fix this would be really tricky. You would need to lift up this commutator, which would be practically impossible because it's in such bad shape. And then you would have to kind of rewind it. It would be quite a process. So unfortunately, I think that this motor is basically junk. However, I remembered when we'd got all the British locomotives that there was this, and I think that this drive is almost exactly the same, with the exception of the fact that it's missing gears and several other parts. So what I'm thinking is that between the two of them, you know, with the gears on this and a potentially good motor on this, we might be able to combine these two drives and get this locomotive going again. I really hope so, because I don't have a crazy amount of spare parts for these sorts of drives. So before we go doing anything, I just want to verify that this motor is in fact working. Everything looks to be in good shape from the outside, but let's just have a quick test here. And that's not so good. I'm seeing sparks and it's not turning. Let's try turning it a little bit manually here and see if we can get it going there. Oh! Yeah! Wow. It's revving pretty high. And this is not on a super powerful controller, so I think that this motor has a lot of life in it. So let's get this disassembled, and then we'll see if we can get some gears into it, or maybe put the motor in this one. I don't know. It would probably be better to put the gears on this one because the motor sounds so good, not having to remove all these parts, but we'll see. So I guess just to start off, we'll just begin by unclipping this. I think it's supposed to come off from that side. And then, just as before, we might have to remove the wheels in order to get at the gears. Whoops. Yeah, I wondered if the gears were supposed to be that loose on their pivots there, but I think they're just a little bit worn down. That's fine. Well, it would appear that everything here is turning quite nicely, so I guess we'll just quickly give this thing some power and see if it will run. I think something on this is not wired correctly. I don't know if maybe something broke and somebody tried to do their own job, but I don't know. We probably don't need these things. Well, lo and behold. So now that we've got the drive in, we just need to figure out how to wire this whole thing up. Now, I don't know which wire goes where, so we could just try, I don't know, maybe connecting a few of them and see what happens. So we want to go tracing. Let's have a look here. So this truck picks up power from this side. This one does from the other. It's just like a Tyco power torque. So I guess this wire right here is just for the light. I'd kind of thought that this wire maybe fed up to to the other side, but I don't actually think that that's the case. We've got this red wire which connects to some wipers, which are on the same side. So these two must go together. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right, let's see if I did any of that wiring correctly. I think I just saw some sparks. Yeah, okay. I clearly messed this whole thing up. That's a pain in the neck. Yes, there we go. Serenity. I think we've got this thing finally working. So let's reinstall the weights. Let's get it over to the track, and hopefully, if I did this all right, it's gonna run. I don't know. This has been a lot more complicated than I was expecting. Alrighty. Alright, folks. Moment of truth. Have we got a runner or have we got a dud? Let's give it some power. I saw it move a little. So I thought, okay, full power. Yeah, I think something's still not right here. Sometimes you get a locomotive with wheels like this and, you know, you have a look and it doesn't look that bad. And you actually give them a bit of cleaning and you start to realize that there's actually quite a thick layer of oxidization over them. And I think that that's the case here. See how much shinier that is? So let's scrub these down and I think that might fix our problem. Well, with those wheels looking just a bit more shiny, I'm a lot more optimistic that this thing is actually going to work. It seemed like it was close last time, but Hopefully we've finally done it now. Alright, let's see here. Oh, yep. Yeah, Serenity, we've got a runner. Yeah, look at that. Finally. Good grief. Okay, so has a bit of a derailing problem. I think it's just this, but otherwise, this thing is just flying. Fantastic. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have this locomotive finally running, but the good news is that it also came with a B unit, so I've coupled them together with some wire because the couplers are, I think, missing some parts. But anyways, we have two of them. I wish I had the whole train, but I think this should look kind of cool. So let's take this thing for a spin. So cool. Well, folks, I've got to say, I am thoroughly impressed with this thing. Who would have guessed that an old drive with no gears in it would have had such a healthy motor? I really can't believe it. You know, I don't really understand why somebody would have taken all the parts off of it, but I'm not going to argue with a good thing. You know, it's just a little bit of work. It got this locomotive back up and running again, which really is quite remarkable. I'm very happy to add this engine as well as the dummy locomotive to my collection too. I've always wanted one of these. I think in its time it was the fastest diesel electric in the world, so that's pretty impressive, and it's just a really sharp looking high-speed train. When I was a kid I used to play a game called Trains with a Z, and this was one of the locomotives they had in the game, and this was usually my go-to as far as high-speed trains went. I just thought it was super cool. So yeah, I am thrilled with this thing. It turned out way better than I ever could have imagined. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed, and with that, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. Well, actually, just before I finish off the video, I'm kind of wondering if maybe this thing is cool enough to actually order an entire train for. Maybe like 4 cars or something like that. I don't know. I'll shop around on eBay and we'll see, but maybe this thing will have its own train at some point. Until then, thanks for watching.